Hi and welcome to the weekly Governance Voice. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you've subscribed, by the way, if you're watching this conversation, for much more enriching conversations about matters governance. Today we talk about pension governance best practices. And joining us in this conversation is FCS Happi Kilongosi to help us understand how do we have best practices when it comes to matters pensions, which really touch the heart of so many people, especially people who are retiring and even who are looking forward towards that. Happi, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Glad to have you here. And I would want us to start this conversation by asking you a general question. Mm-hmm. When you look at our pensions industry, are the pensioners happy?
That's an interesting question. I would say yes and no, because there are many factors that would make a pensioner happy or unhappy. One, the contribution rates, whether it was a contributory scheme or a non-contributory scheme. Like I'm sure you've had some pensioners, especially maybe from the civil public service, where civil servants where initially they were not contributing, and by the time they retire, then there's no money to pay them. So that group of pensioners would not be happy.
Absolutely.
Because it takes a while before they are paid. Second category of pensioners that would not be happy are those that contributions were very low. So the higher percentage that you contribute from your salary, it means a better return for you.
That's true.
So that would also distinguish from those who are happy and those who are unhappy.
Okay.
But generally, pension would usually be about 10% to 40-50% of your replacement of your current income. So looking at that, that would tell you if you're also not doing other things in addition to your pension for financial security, it does put you at a very precarious financial position.
Wow.
Yes.
In fact, before we get into the questions, there was a damning report that came out that close to 80% of retirees who retire here in this country are poor.
Actually, you've taken it low. It's 95%.
It's 95%?
Yes. And that came from the survey that the regulator RBA did last year, and that was the second one. Last year around August, September they did a second survey, which still confirmed the same. 95% of retirees are poor. And poor meaning that they're not able to meet their financial obligations. And that comes from the fact that, in a way, our culture as a nation, we are a consumer society. So when we get employment, we get the golden cuffs. And there's that false safety notion that since I have a pension, my old age will be catered for. But we don't question the numbers. So it would be nice for you to question your current lifestyle vis-a-vis the projected pension benefit, so that then you can see there's a big mismatch and you start doing something about it while you still have the time.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. I think we shall have another conversation about this. But today let's talk about governance. And I wanted you to provide an overview of what pension governance entails and why it is important.
Governance is mechanism for any organization to be transparent, to be accountable, to be responsible, and to be fair. So given that those are the pillars of governance, it is also critical for pension, because in the end, all contributors want to get paid. So for that to happen, the critical pillars of governance need to be in place. So it is critical because it's necessary that trustees carry their fiduciary responsibility in the manner in which they're supposed to do so, so that the contributors actually get their benefit at the end of it.
Okay. For every pension fund and or scheme, I see trustees involved. Maybe for the sake of our viewers, you could mention who these trustees are, and let's talk about their role, especially in ensuring compliance with legal and what you just called fiduciary responsibilities.
When you look at how pension schemes are established, it is a trust, which means then you need the trustees who then take care of the benefits or take care of the assets for the benefit of the beneficiaries, who in this case are the contributors and their nominated next of kin and their beneficiaries. So trustees have a role to ensure that they ensure that the sponsors pay into the scheme, that the fund managers invest the money, that the custodians keep the title documents safely, and that the scheme is audited as required, and that the administrator keeps an accurate data of the members, which would entail an accurate list of the beneficiaries who are supposed to be paid, because looking at even the reason why we have the Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority, part of the problem is because as Kenyans, we are not in the habit of nominating a next of kin. So your benefits at the point that a contributor passes on, then the trustees have no idea who to pay. So one of the roles of the administrator is to ensure that you have full details of the contributors. So looking at the role of the trustees generally is to ensure that you have valid service level agreements with all the service providers, and the service providers are there so that there is a maker-checker mechanism. It is not a situation where there's a role that one starts and ends with one person. So there's the administrator, there's the custodian, there's the fund manager, and there's the auditor.
Wow.
And in case of a defined benefit scheme, then you also have actuaries on board.
Wow.
Yes. So that ensures that the governance structure of the scheme is at a good place.
They certainly need a lot of training from ICS.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
And let's talk also a lot about, there is the governing bodies, especially we're talking about the regulatory bodies here.
Yes.
What then is also their role in overseeing this governance that we are hoping that the trustees should have?
Yeah, that's a good question. The law comes in such a way that after practice is established, then the law comes in to ensure that there is a fair application. There's justice in the application of the practice. So looking at when the regulator came on board in 2007, and the authority came into existence in 2010, I think, or thereabout. But before 2007, I am sure many people were earning pension. But now, when the practice had fully established, then the regulator came into place to just ensure that all these schemes, that the trustees are doing the right thing.
Okay.
And if you think a while back, we have schemes that pensioners, their contributors retired and they were not unable to pay pension because of the way investments were done, which were not making the schemes liquid enough to pay off the pensioners. Case in point, Kenya Railway, at some point, Post Office, just to mention a few, and I'm saying that because it is in the public domain. So the regulator came into place to put in rules and regulations to ensure that the schemes are balanced. And for instance, when you look at one of the regulations the RBA has put in place is to ensure that a scheme does not invest more than 30% of its portfolio in real estate, because then that ties up a lot of cash. And probably by the time people are retiring, their scheme is not liquid enough. The building is there, but probably is not fully let or has not been sold. No tenants, or if they're meant for sale, they've not been sold. So, and the pensioner at that point needs cash, not the building. Yeah, that's true. So there's a difference between the sense of pride that comes with ownership of real estate, but core of the main reason why a scheme is there is to ensure that you are liquid at the point of retirement. So just to ensure that there's a balance in the scheme. So that is one of the key roles that the administrator came in to ensure that
It's done.
That is done.
Yeah.
And I believe from that time, we are not seeing many cases where schemes have put too much in real estate and then disadvantage members.
You're right.
So most of the challenges now would be from the point of sponsors maybe not paying up, which also is problematic because it disadvantages the members because it's not being invested. And you see, investment is, for it to make sense, you need time. If you don't invest early, then you lose out on the compounding effect.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, any time someone talks a lot about or touches on money, it's a very sensitive thing. I mean, I have saved for a whopping 30 years. And when I need the money and you started giving me stories, I think we may not laugh.
Very true.
Yeah,
very true.
And it's a touch point. This is at the time when I need it. And I want to bring in the element of enhancing transparency and accountability. What can trustees do? Or what strategies can they employ to ensure in the pension funds that they manage, they are ensuring that transparency and accountability?
One, from where I sit, the most important is one that as members of schemes, we need to appreciate our role, because for any organization to exist and be attuned to its objective, it's a collective responsibility. So yes, the trustees are there to ensure that everything is done, but also members have a role to play. And that is where, when you look at the reason why schemes have AGMs, is so that trustees can report to the members what the transactions throughout the year. And if members understand that the reason why trustees are reporting to them, so that they can question, they can poke holes in the reports, look at the progress, the status, and ask the right questions, because a stitch in time saves nine.
Yeah.
But the problem is, with Matters Pension, from my experience, people don't really care. And they don't give it much attention until when they are just about to retire. But you see, at that point, what can you do? If it started going wrong 10, 20 years ago, what can you do in 2-3 years? Nothing, really.
Nothing.
So if members ask questions at that point, either looking at the trajectory of how the interest rates are being posted, the kind of returns that are being made, whether their statements, maybe their sponsors are not remitting money, so that they make noise at that point so that the sponsor can do something about it, then something can be done. But if they're quiet, it becomes really... And you see, even trustees would not like trouble. So if we have shown your statement, we have had an AGM, and in the reports they have said your sponsor is not remitting, and you're quiet about it, it takes two to tangle. So it can't be forced. And in any case, if I'm the employee and I start questioning my employer, there's likely to be something to be done, as opposed to a third party writing letters to my employer. Because yes, we understand money is short, but with the right pressure, because as an employee, you know the right places to push.
Yes.
So you know the right buttons to push, and it would make a lot more sense then.
Okay.
So that is one of the things that I think, if properly utilized, would then improve the transparency and management of the scheme. Plus, it would make trustees work harder, because when you're put on the spot, you will tend to do a bit better next time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe as we come to a close of the conversation, there are two things that I wanted you to address. And one of it is the risks associated with pension funds, which you have mentioned a few of them, and the sustainability of investments. Because as you have said, returns, we have a regulator who's saying don't cross the 30% mark when it comes to real estate and the likes. But you know what? Pensioners and plans don't care. We want to get some good return. We're giving you money.
Yes.
So what's your advice on this? Or how do you advise? Or what's your sentiments on this particular area of ensuring, yes, they're putting in and mitigating risk, as well as investing in a sustainable manner?
I like also, during that survey, the RBA launched their strategic plan.
Yeah.
And one of the things they were pushing is for alternative investments. offshore trading,
Okay.
which when you look at our traditional fund managers, they've not really been keen on that space, and they're more comfortable on the tried and tested and true, the fixed deposits, the government securities. That is where most of the investments for pensions are. And when you look at the return for that one, yes, it's conservative, almost zero risk, but the return is not as high. But also, I believe, coming from the fact that we don't push them, we don't question. So if you're not pushed, who wants to work hard? So part of it is membership and the trustees to blame. And secondly, if the trustees could onboard fund managers based on their expertise, so that you have a fund manager whose expertise is in maybe the fixed securities, then you have a fund manager whose expertise is in real estate, then you have a fund manager whose expertise is offshore and alternatives, so that using the combined expertise from all the available expertise in fund management, then the interest would be high. And I don't think that is an impossible ask, because looking at the special funds that the regulations came out, I think just towards the end of last year, the likes of Mansa X, the likes of 𝐂𝐒𝐒, how are they able to navigate and make such high returns? So it's possible. So I think, and also to address the question of sustainability, when you look at the young people, and we live in the era of knowledge is all over the place. So the young people are elite and they're knowledgeable and they're smart. So when we are trying to push that you save for your old age through pension, then they, as opposed from our generation, they question a lot of things. So why would I use pension whose rate of return is this small, yet there's these other options where the return is high. And here you're telling me to save and wait for those 20, 30, 40 years to access my benefit. Yet on this other hand, there are higher returns and I can access this as and when I want. So there's a big mismatch. And for pension sustainability is the younger generation, they support the older by their contributions that they bring in. So they support the older. So if we don't ensure that we align to keep them coming, then of course at some point, they're going to be a group that will have premium tiers, because that sustainability is not there. So something needs to be done. And looking at all those factors, I believe it is a high time that even the way the constitution of trustees is done should open up to have non-independent, just the way corporates work. Board of directors, you don't find that, if let's say it is your company, that you only have people who are executives here. You have outsiders, so that they bring in fresh thinking, independent perspectives of how they look at how you're doing business. And that actually helps. You can't grow when you are homogeneous. You need to allow other people in, so that then they bring in their different perspectives and it grows. And it goes, same goes to when you look at even towns. I love using 𝐸𝐻𝐒𝐻𝐢 Athi River. One has surpassed the other, yet Athi River has been there for long. Even in history, we used to learn about Athi River. But right now, you can't compare the two towns, because one has allowed in people from diaspora, so to speak. The other one is still homogeneous. So that would, if trustees of schemes, if schemes would allow that kind of composition, amend their trust deed and rules to allow for independent trustees, I believe they would spice up things and make it attractive, because we need these young people to come in as well.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Finally, the pension landscape and what you see evolving, especially trends that are facing the future. And if at all there's any other challenge that you probably have not mentioned, and I know you mentioned quite a number, you can put it in there as you close.
There's at least there's positivity happening. One, looking at the finance bill that we rejected.
Yes.
It was not all bad.
Yes.
For the pension space, it was good.
It was good.
I agree the other things were bad, but yes, we need to also learn to sieve, not to throw the baby and the bathwater.
Yes.
So for the pension space, that was really good.
Yeah.
And we had the tax advantage increasing from 20,000 to 30,000 a month, which is good money.
Yeah.
So you can factor that with compounding interest and years. That's a really a good big thing. Then there's also the aspect of pension will not be taxed provided you've been in a scheme for 20 years. That's really nice because you can imagine, let's say your statement says 10M and then you hammer in tax. But now, if it is 10M, you're getting your 10M, which is a very good thing.
Yeah.
And now we are saying that also gratuity will not be taxed. So those are good things. And I believe it is geared towards making the pension space sustainable to manage that risk of the young people the pension is not a thing that is a thing for them.
They would rather, that's it, yes.
Yeah, they'd rather do contracts and work when they want. So we're having those incentives, I believe, is a way to also hook them to ensure that this is sustainable. And in that aspect, I think there's still hope, and I believe there are things which are happening, and I'd like to encourage everyone in the pension space, and even within and without the pension space, to rethink, because if we are supposed to reduce that poverty in retirement, then it's a high time that we put our attention to the pension, so that because the ripple effect from individual now to national, if you're poor, you can't think, you can't be progressive. But if you're content, then you have a mind to progressively think, and that should ultimately move us from third world, as we are so labeled to first. Yes.
Thank you so much, Happi, for your time.
Asante sana.
All right.
It was good having me here.
Absolutely.
Yes.
There you go. Quite some showcase there from FCA's Happi Kilongosi. And it's quite a sound state of affairs. We need to be really up and about, talking about pensions from the young generation all the way up. And even for the trustees who are there, if you haven't had your training to ensure that you are managing these things well, that's why the Institute of Certified Secretaries exists, so that at least you are well equipped for that. And even for your members, you also need to question, as you've heard from Happi, that sometimes there must be a push to ensure that your pensions are well managed and are going well, and they are transparent as well. And also, are your trustees trained? That's a question you could ask in your next AGM. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for watching. See you next time.